Hey guys, welcome back to another Sunday video. If you are new to my channel, I do this once a week and talk about trading setups or ideas that I have for the week ahead, as well as some things to look out for in terms of news, volatility, or market events that could be market moving. Now, last week was a big week. If we jump over really quick to the S&P 500, you can see we had this really steep drop on stocks that actually rallied really hard. You might say, well, Nick, I don't trade stocks, I trade currencies. Well, whether you know it or not, many of the markets around the world trade together. So we actually saw that the stock market dropped pretty precipitously, and then we saw it jump right on back. And a lot of the different currencies around the world also saw some big movements as well. Here's the Japanese index, or the Japanese currency index, right? So you have the yen here jumping and gapping up higher and then actually trading lower towards the end of the week there. And then you had a lot of different things move all over the place. You can see here's the dollar index. The dollar index took a big haircut this week, and now it's time to look for potential setups. Is this thing bullish? Is it time to look for buys, or is this going to break out and keep going lower? With that said, I'm going to try and do my best in this video to share my thoughts. Please remember that I can be wrong. I'm not always right. This is not financial advice. This is purely just my analysis going into the week. With that said, let's go take a look at some of the news this week. Now, we've got a ton of news, lots of red folders on the docket for this week. So it does look like volatility in the markets may look to continue. Big things to me stick out are CPI for the US, the New Zealand rate statement. You've got Canada's rate statement as well. The Fed talking on Wednesday, unemployment for Aussie, GDP for China. I mean, all of this is pretty significant stuff. You've got CPI and core retail sales. Now, if you don't know what any of these things are, feel free on your own time to head over to forexfactory.com, go to the calendar, and you can actually read on these folders what they mean just by clicking the folder and reading right there. So anyways, with that said, let's jump into some ideas. Let's talk about, actual charts here for a little bit and see if there's anything of interest. Now, I mentioned last week, actually, in one of my videos, I talked about it in this video. I talked about the yen, and I pointed out that I was pretty much short bias still on the yen, and that I was treating these sort of events as pullbacks. The dollar yen, for example, I was bullish on that last week. We did start to see some push off of the lows. I was pointing out some of the supportive levels, and again, just kind of going through my thoughts in this video. If you want to pull that up, feel free to do so. But in that video, I was sort of talking about how I'm treating this as more of a pullback. Remember, if you're not super familiar with what happened, or why the markets were dipping. Basically, we had China. They imposed some bans on their own, on some of the companies in their country, which was perceived as really scary for the Asian stock market. The Asian stock market took a dip, and then the U.S. followed, and it was also concerned around, what the Fed said last week, which was basically, we're seeing growth, but not at a fast enough pace right now. So that was sort of a scare. But I basically looked at that as not really like the end of the world. I kind of was like, I think this is more of a buy than anything. If you go watch that video, feel free to go watch that on your own time to see, but I was pretty much bullish on that, and I still am going into this week. Now, I could still be wrong about that, but my idea here is that for the most part, I'm still bullish on the dollar, and I think that watching for these levels here at a pullback could be really worthwhile. So some of the individual currency pairs that stick out to me are things like dollar Swiss. The question here is, are we going to hold where we currently sit at the 38.2? I think that probably there is some decent risk to reward based on my strategy. So what I mean by that is I like to buy pullbacks in a strong upward trend. Here's the daily chart. You've got these beautiful upward candles after the Fed talked about the idea of raising rates 2 times by the end of 2023. That was very bullish for the dollar, right? Then we started to see this pullback recently with a little bit of a market scare. Now, like I said, I am not really viewing this as like a end of the world, it's going to crash. Now, I could be wrong, and that's why I use a stop loss. But the idea here would be 38.2 looks pretty decent for me, looking for long side on the dollar against the Swiss franc. That could be something that I take a trade on. Maybe looking for something like that on the market open. Depends if we get a gap, and depends what the price action looks like once the markets start going again. I may even wait to see if we can get some confirmation in terms of a shorter term break and retest kind of concept. Of course, if I take any trades, you guys will see them inside of our private Discord. If you're not in our Discord, essentially everything I do goes right in here. I share my trades. They kind of look like this. You can see I took a long on Aussie yen again, this trade did not work out, but been having some pretty tough trades in the last week. But before that, there was like a month of winners. So hopefully we can start seeing some more good trades come back around. But anyways, you can see my trades in the group. You can see Frank's trades, Patrick's trades. We do a weekly forecast, which is like our fundamental research report that we do each week on like 10 major currency pairs. And then we do research, live webinars with Coach Joe Barreca. He's an Australian guy, very nice person, and does a great job just answering people's questions in the live webinars that are private for members. You get chat rooms, all sorts of access here. If you're not already inside of our Discord, you're possibly really missing out on something that could help you out. So if you're not already in there, there's a link down below. It's the first link in the description. You can use the promo code there to sign up, and it's going to give you a discount for supporting the content here on YouTube. So thank you for being here. And again, join us in Discord if you're not already in the group. Definitely worthwhile in my view. I think you can meet a lot of great people, get a lot of great ideas going, and probably up your game as a trader. If nothing else, I think that just being around other realistic traders that are not here to quote unquote get rich quick and all that nonsense that you hear on the internet, I think it's a good influence to people who are serious about this stuff. They say it's cliche, but surrounding yourself with winners makes you a winner, right? Like it's like that concept of just a slight deviation here. It's like if you have 4 friends that are like good people. They're nice, they're polite, they're smart, and they're hardworking. And then you come along. Most likely, even if you're not the best kind of person, if you have this influencing your life, you're probably going to be the 5th of those friends, right? Unless they just really don't like you and they think you're awful. But hopefully you're the 5th of those friends. Well, that's kind of how we treat our Discord. It's a realistic community, people supporting each other, answering each other's questions, working together, etc. So I do like dollar Swiss, like I mentioned, potentially to the long side this week. There's another one that I like even more right now, which is the dollar yen. So we'll pull up dollar yen. Dollar yen held the lows beautifully. I am watching this week maybe for any sort of pullback. Maybe we could get another retest of this zone here. But for the most part, actually, this is what I mentioned in the video last week. I mentioned this break and retest there. So that one was beautiful, held nicely. And I think that could be headed back to 110.5 as a first stop for the dollar yen. Now, I am bullish on this, meaning that I still think that this thing has room to go to 112 by the end of the year. That was a target that I made months ago, so we will see if it can hold that. But we did break out through the previous top there. I'll actually extend this out so you can see it. So we had this previous top that was broken here after the Fed. Again, their monetary policy became more hawkish, and so that sort of put me in a bullish mode. Well, we saw the really steep dip here off of the news of everything and the scares going on in the market. But for me, this is mostly a dip buying opportunity. Now, again, like I said, I could be wrong. That's why I use a stop loss and risk small. But the idea here is that I think that there should be some opportunities for long side action on the dollar yen going forward. So again, I think 112 is possible to get hit, which is a breakout just above where we previously made our high point. So we will see. But again, I like these pullback levels here on the daily chart, and on the 4-hour chart and 1-hour chart, you've got some nice little break and retest opportunities, in my opinion, going forward this week. Something like this, even, for example, we've shown some signs of demand. So something like this looks not too bad to me. So this would be risking about 45 pips. And if it did make it all the way to the previous top there, you're talking about 165 pips. So there's a lot of upside relative to the risk if this trend does want to keep going, right? And that's the whole idea with my trading style. I'm looking to take trades where, if I'm right, I have a lot of potential to make some good money. And if I'm wrong, I'm not going to get annihilated. I'm just going to take a small loss, right? That's the whole thesis with my trading style, is take small losses and let winners become big winners. That's the whole thing. I've pointed this out on my streams before, but there's a lot of times where people will take a trade. They'll say like, oh, I bought here, which in hindsight looks really stupid, but people make dumb mistakes, and I've definitely made them myself. So let's say I bought right here, and then I just refuse to be wrong, right? And I just let this thing become a problem. Well, let's say I'm completely wrong even still, and it just keeps going until it blows the account, right? That's a situation where a lot of traders find themselves. They get really caught up buying into something or selling into something, and they just refuse to be wrong. But what if you did the exact opposite? What if you were stubbornly holding on to this trade, but instead of a buy, you took a sell? Wouldn't that be like game changing, right? That's the whole thesis with my trading style, is to sell something or buy something and stubbornly hold on to it if it is a winner and just quickly cut it off if it's a loss. That's pretty much my entire trading strategy in a nutshell. Plus fundamental analysis, technical analysis, and sentiment analysis. But the thesis, the overall idea is catch big trends, and that's where some of the edge comes in. With that said, we can also talk a little bit about Euro USD, Euro dollar here pulling back this week. I pointed out this level here. We initially saw some rejection, but now Euro dollar seemed to have closed pretty strongly towards the end of the week there. Overall, this thing is pretty bearish in my view. I still think that a reasonable target here would be 1.175 to 1.17, somewhere in this range. I've pointed that out on streams a couple different times. So watching for that, I think that maybe if you see some signs of rejection here on the lower time frames, maybe there's some short side action here. I still think that there is movement potential to the downside should the dollar stay strong. I would not personally bet on the euro at this point, even though, maybe in a week from now I should have, but that's hindsight for you, right? The idea here for me is that most likely I see the Euro USD continuing lower on this trend. And if I'm wrong about that, then I will look to adapt and take small losses anyways. So, the other side of this could be, if you wait a little bit longer, maybe we see a pullback to this trend line. Maybe we get some rejection. There could be something like that if you're hesitant on the euro dollar. But for the most part, for me, I am still bearish on this until further notice. Let's take a look at gold here for a second, XAU USD. So gold is an interesting one. On the short term, it looks pretty bullish, but on the higher time frames, it's a little bit struggling. You can see, so this thing, we formed that low. We've been forming higher lows coming into this market. It looks very clean, right? But we have to remember that if we zoom out a little bit here, if we go to the 4 hour, we go to the daily chart, you're talking about something that has flown off a cliff, right? And now is pulling back. And that's a setup for a lot of short traders that they love, right? This idea of, big move to the downside, retest of resistance, and then short and continue lower. And that is also backed up by the daily chart. So check this out. The daily chart even lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, right? We've got bearish structure until further notice, until we're really able to break out of that pattern there. I'm overall bearish on gold. So I'm not going and shorting gold because personally I don't like to short gold. I've talked about this on my stream a couple different times, but I don't like to short gold because it is something that is deflationary and rises in value over time historically. So I don't like to go short on something that over time tends to go up because they don't make any more gold, right? And they also, similar to stock markets, the stock market continues to go higher as they print more money and inflate the currency, as well as stocks and companies continue to grow, right? So I don't like to short those two markets. So with that said, if I was to be short biased on the gold market, what that means instead is maybe I'll go buy something like the dollar, right? I'll go buy something against, buy the dollar, sell something else. I probably wouldn't trade gold. If anything, I'd prefer to short the euro dollar than short gold, right? Just a personal preference in my trading style. That's not always the case. There have been times where I've shorted gold and made money, but it's just few and far between. So what I will say is, again, watch this level. If this level breaks out, maybe you have some fresh buying that comes in, and that could be a different scenario. If we see a breakout close above this 38.2 retracement, from a technical analysis perspective, that has potential to maybe do one of these and move up to the next major level, which I think is the 61.8. So if that were to break, you're working with what? $38 to $40 of the price of gold. That's a pretty significant move. So, watching for that breakout this week could be big. If the dollar gets weak, you could see gold do something like that. And I think that there may be some momentum trades that could play out there. For example, let's go down to the 1 hour chart and just talk about that. Just to be a little bit more clear, you've got this level here at the 38.2. What I'm talking about is, you get a close outside of that level, looks pretty good. And then maybe price starts to trail back down a little bit. And then something like a pullback to that level, stop loss there, somewhere like this. And then if you were to target that whole range and it did the whole move, right? If you took $40 on the price of gold, you're talking about a significant move there, right? And that's a pretty decent risk to reward. Something like a 3 to 1 almost could make sense. You could even, add a little bit more to the stop loss. That's a 3 to 1 and it looks pretty clean, right? So you break out, retest, and if you're bullish on gold, for whatever your trading strategy is, could be some upside. Real quick, if you're not already using a trading strategy, I do want to encourage you to pause your real trading. Like this is, obviously do what you want to do at the end of the day, but I would highly encourage anybody who does not have a trading plan to pause what they are doing and to go use some of the free tools on our website. If you go to our website and just go to, if you go to market education, resources, trading plan template, this is going to help you. So if you're watching this video and you're like, I don't really have a plan, I just kind of like buy or sell things because they look fun to short or buy. That's a really dangerous path in trading, and I would highly encourage you not to do that for long, especially with real money, because you're likely going to lose it. I would say head over to our website, a1trading.com, completely free to do. Head over to the education section, go to resources, trading plan template. And there's other stuff that you could possibly want. If you want a performance tracker, smart money trading strategies guide, free technical analysis handbook. If you want any of these things, again, completely free. We will get your email and we'll probably send you something every once in a while, but I think it's a fair trade. So anyways, so gold looking interesting here to the upside. If you're a short biased, then honestly, there's probably some decent longer term risk reward here on these trades here. So for example, if I was to short gold, let's say I did something like this. Let's say I shorted here with a stop just above here, and I looked for this continuation here. That's a huge risk reward. That's a 4-to-1, right? And that's pretty reasonable. And let's say that didn't work out. Maybe price trailed a little bit higher. I could repeat the attempt at something like the 61.8. If it came into play, I'd probably loosen the stop a little bit if I was going for that much room, because again, sometimes you get stuff like that happen in the markets, right? It's just inevitable that you get a little bit of chop, you get a little bit of craziness. So keeping your stops not too tight can make the difference a lot of times in a trade, succeeding or not. Now, of course, that can also add risk to your trade, but again, that's why we use smaller positions when we use bigger stop losses. Again, risk management is very, very important. We talk about it all the time on my channel. Because I know it's not the most exciting topic, but it is probably the most important topic to manage your risk accordingly. So a couple different trade setups there on gold. Like I said, I am bearish on this, so I view this level as more of a barrier than a point to break out. But if it does break out and I'm completely wrong about that, then maybe we see, continuation. So my first response would be in this area, I'd say it's a little bit more on the seller side and potential moves back down to the lows. So just my thoughts there, especially as a dollar bull at this time. Let's see. What else can we talk about here? We could talk about pound. Did we talk about pound dollar? No, we didn't. So pound dollar, look at this. You guys, the pound just went insane towards the end of the week. We saw dollar weakness towards the end of the week as well, which probably really lifted the pound dollar because the pound got really strong and just absolutely broke out of multiple levels of resistance here. So you had this trend line here hold beautifully, right? For a couple different bounces. And then we saw this thing just break out insanely strong towards the end of the week. Not only that, we also broke through this high, forming a very, very arguable higher high. I'd love to see this thing break a little bit higher before I call it a higher high, just because again, this could wick right back down and be just a retest of this zone. But I would say it's looking very close to a higher high and showing lots of demand on the pound dollar. The pound is something that I haven't really been trading the pound against the dollar recently because I've sort of been bullish on both of those currencies. And usually when I'm bullish on both currencies or bearish on both, I avoid that currency pair. So for example, if I'm bullish on the pound, bullish on the dollar, I wouldn't really want to trade this. I'd rather trade GBP, JPY, right? Because in this case, so this is case number one. In this case, I'm saying, okay, I'm bullish on the pound and I'm bearish on the yen, right? So remember, whenever we're trading currencies, we're trading two different currencies, one against the other. So you have to pick one that you're going to buy, and you're actually going to have to pick one that you're going to short, right? That you think is going lower. So you have options. You can trade multiple different crosses. But for me, pound yen would be more favorable. So I'd rather be long on pound, short on yen. So again, the pound dollar itself, though, I know a lot of people trade it for their own trading strategies. And my strategy is not the only one that is good out there. So I appreciate that. And I try and cover things that I know other people care about as well, like gold and the pound. So I would watch personally for, if you get a little bit higher high, maybe some breakout and retest could be in the play. I think that the bulls here seem strong. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but it does look like we found a bottom here, right? Seems like we found a pretty strong bottom there down at 1.375. We tagged that level and then just have found support since then. I thought we were going to go a little bit lower, but again, I can be wrong sometimes, and there's an example of one. So I thought we were going to head down to 1.37. We didn't quite get there, and then we had this massive up green candle, which does look like a short-term low. We could see this thing rally for the rest, or coming into this week, we could see this thing continue. So I would say long bias on the pound dollar here, if anything, especially from a technical analysis standpoint, breaking out from that downtrend structure and forming a strong, engulfing looking candle here on the daily chart. So it looks pretty promising so far. What else? I mentioned pound yen. I do like pound yen on the long side. Look at that. And that's what I mean. If you're talking about pound versus yen, in this case, this one is even more volatile than pound dollar. And you can see this thing just dropped like crazy this week. And then on Friday, just launched up into space there. I would love to see this thing before getting long myself. I'd love to see it break out of this higher time frame trend line to the downside. Would love to look to get long on the pound yen and see a move back to the previous highs. I would love to be a part of that, but I'm not going to jump to conclusions until I start to see the price action marry up to what I'm thinking, right? So higher time frames, upward trend on the pound yen looking very good. We held support beautifully, had a little bit of a fake out there on this trend line, but it does look like it is trying to hold it for now. And going into this week, going to see if we can clear resistance and start to break out of that downward trend, then look for opportunities like this. I like this a lot. It's a little bit of a patience game there to try and wait for that exact setup because, that could take a week to set up. But again, if it's there, I would probably be looking to take it. Let's see. We did dollar yen, dollar Swiss, gold, the euro, the pound yen. Is there any other ones? What about Aussie dollar? So Aussie dollar, we do have news. Remember, I mentioned earlier in here that we have we have actually two of those. We have the NZD rate statement, which is big. We also have Aussie unemployment this week. So a couple different things that could be moving the Aussie and the New Zealand. So definitely going to be watching this one. We formed a low there, seemingly. And again, this one is really got a lot of bearish structure. So if I remove the drawings here and we just come here, just from a momentum perspective, we have some lower highs coming in here. Would love to start seeing those get broken before really looking to be a bull on the Aussie dollar again. It depends how you draw these trend lines. I've mentioned a couple different times that trend lines are the danger of them is they're sort of subjective, right? There's 3 trend lines, all seem genuinely kind of valid to me, right? Well, I guess this last one was not so good, but the idea here is that depending on how you draw trend lines, they can be viewed differently. So I use trend lines just loosely. I don't, rely on trend lines because again, they can be drawn so many different ways. And so for me, what I would like to see, however, is a higher low, right? And that's the main point. So for example, if I'm looking at this level here and I'm looking at this level here, I would love to start seeing price form some arguably higher low. So something like this. I'd love to see that, right? And that's sort of the trading style that I go for. If you watch my videos long enough, you'll probably see me taking similar trades or talking about similar trades over and over. Something like that. Let me put that back on there. Something like a pullback here, pullback here after a break, just showing that momentum is on my side before I jump to conclusions about, price is going higher or lower. Hopefully that makes sense. But just my style of trading. We'll take a quick look at NZD USD as well while we're here. So NZD USD forming what seems to be a bottom. I think a natural place to go would be a retest of some of this resistance here. So first stop, if price does remain bullish, would be a move up to 0.7080. And then from there, before I get long bias, I'd love to see this thing start to form higher lows. New Zealand is one that I am bullish on. I am bullish on overall due to the fact that they've talked about raising rates pretty aggressively compared to some of the other places around the world. So I do see myself looking for long setups, but I'd love to see the structure and the technical analysis marry up with my strategy before trying to get involved. Again, because lower highs, buying into this market is not something that I'm looking to aggressively do just yet, right? I'd like to see a little bit more signs of strength before that. Now, I did take some long trades on the New Zealand dollar on a pullback here, got stopped out on this candle, and I think I took another one somewhere in there. So I tried to, this was the news announcement from the the central bank in New Zealand talking about raising rates that was super bullish, was super bullish. And then we got some fresh news that was bearish. And so I got a little bit faked out there on that move. But again, I'm not too worried about it. Took small losses, and now I'm just looking for opportunities to try and get involved again. So going to be having that one on my watch list, especially if we start to continue moving higher. With that said, guys, thank you very much for being here. Just a reminder, if you're not already in our Discord, like I mentioned earlier, you can join us. There's a link down below in the description here at the end of the video. I would encourage you, just check it out. Try it for a month. Try it for 1 month. See if it's a fit for you. If you like it, maybe you'll stay with us for the long term and become part of our trading family there. And maybe, you know, if you don't like it, then I'd be surprised, but if you didn't like it, then of course it's only 1 month. So sign up down below in the description if you'd like to join us. And with that said, guys, happy trading and have a great week.